She paused, then added, "Today, we'll be learning the water-breathing technique. You'll be practicing that alongside the other jutsus over the next few days. I'm introducing this one because it's a survival skill. It might just save your life someday. Let's get started." Rin's house, the new training regimen had been going smoothly, up until a certain incident. Naruto and Hinata had made impressive strides with the 4 techniques they were taught, working to reduce the number of hand signs required, just as they would have learned at the academy. It was one afternoon while they were supposed to be practicing that Rin, having just finished tending to her garden, noticed they were nowhere to be found. Concerned, she called Haruka to help search the house. What they stumbled upon wasn't what either of them expected. Somehow, Naruto had come to believe that mastering a perfect female transformation required a deeper understanding of physical differences. He had managed to convince Hinata of this too, which led to the rather awkward scene they walked in on, both of them standing completely unclothed, trying to study each other's anatomy while their faces burned crimson. The only logical response was to sit them down for the talk. For the next week, Naruto and Hinata found it nearly impossible to look at each other without their cheeks lighting up, something Rin and Haruka found endlessly amusing. Eventually, once the embarrassment faded, the two could agree on one thing: their transformation jutsus had definitely improved. Forest, they had just managed to perform all 4 academy-level jutsu without any hand signs. Initially, Rin had told them that being able to cast jutsus with just one hand sign was the mark of true skill, and that most Konoha students learned to do so before graduating. But thanks to Naruto's suggestion, both had pushed themselves even further, eliminating hand signs entirely. The real challenge was learning how the chakra felt when molded, and then replicating that pattern without the cues provided by signs. The effort paid off. Hinata now had near-flawless control, and Naruto's chakra precision had reached Jonin standards. After 4 years of relentless chakra training and learning about field medicine, Rin finally deemed them ready to take on medical ninjutsu. "Alright, let's begin with the mystical palm technique," Rin said. "The hand signs are tiger, horse, rabbit, rat, and dog. If you do it right, your hands will glow green with healing chakra. This is the foundation for most healing techniques," she explained. "It only requires precise chakra control and is useful in nearly every medical situation. The trick is to practice in various contexts so you can adapt quickly. But be warned, no one wants an inexperienced medic working on them, so to be certified, you'll need to pass a series of assessments. I'm only a mid-level medic, so I won't be able to teach you everything. But I can show you enough to treat deep wounds and stabilize critical patients until professional help arrives." So, ready to begin. Outside Rin's house, Naruto and Hinata had both recently turned 11 and completed the basic training Rin was able to offer them. Things had been rather fascinating at the beginning, especially when they discovered that whenever Naruto attempted to use medical chakra, his energy would shift into a darker shade of gold. Though unusual in appearance, it performed identically to regular healing chakra, so they didn't dwell on it. Hinata, meanwhile, seemed to have a natural knack for medical ninjutsu and absorbed the teachings with ease. Unfortunately, Rin only had a limited amount of knowledge to pass on in that field. Alongside their training, the two had also picked up standard jutsus taught to them by the 3rd Hokage. According to Haruka, it was now time to branch off into more specific areas, and she already had a plan for what came next. "As you both understand, it's important that you each master techniques the other may not know. That way, if one of you is defeated, the other still has a chance," Haruka explained. "We'll start with something simple, figuring out your elemental affinity. This will help us determine which chakra nature you'll eventually control instinctively, though that level of skill will take years. It also lets us know which types of jutsus you should keep an eye out for while traveling," she went on. "Now Naruto, do you know why the 3rd Hokage gave you chakra tree seeds for your birthday, aside from keeping you occupied?" Haruka asked as she led them toward the garden. "No idea," Naruto replied, clearly puzzled. "These plants actually serve a greater purpose. By pushing chakra into one, it reacts and reveals your elemental nature. Now both of you give it a try," Haruka said, pointing to the trees. Naruto approached first, placing his hand on a tree and channeling his chakra into it. Almost instantly, a breeze kicked up, circling the tree and sending fallen leaves fluttering before settling down. "Looks like Naruto has a wind affinity," Haruka observed. That's a solid element for attack-based techniques. Hinata, you're up. Hinata walked forward and pressed her hand to another tree. As her chakra flowed in, a dense mist began to gather before being absorbed by the roots. Water nature. That leans more toward defensive abilities, Haruka noted. What would the reactions be for other elements? Hinata asked, curious. Well, Haruka began, fire would give off heat, lightning would cause the tree to glow, and earth would harden and darken the bark. Now that we know your natures, I'll walk you through the basics of elemental control later. But we'll pause that for now, she continued. Hinata, it's time for you to begin learning the Hyuga techniques we managed to preserve. You'll spend the next year mastering them before turning your focus to elemental mastery, Haruka told her. Turning to Naruto, she added, and now's the right moment to dive into the techniques your father left behind and begin working on wind control. Now then, here's how you start, Haruka explained. Naruto, for wind, take a leaf and try to slice it using your chakra. Hinata, fill a bowl with water and use your chakra to mold it into a sphere. I'll leave you both to practice for now. Tomorrow, you start your new training paths. Inside Rin's house, Naruto had almost completely forgotten about the scroll his father had left him. Since leaving Konoha, he hadn't opened it once. That was about to change. Opening the scroll again, he reread the letter. This time, a single line stood out, his father's final words advising him to protect the one person he cherished most. When he thought about the people in his life, only one person truly came to mind, Hinata. Of course, he'd protect any of his close friends, but if something happened to her, it would break him. Realization hit him like a wave, he had fallen for his best friend. And strangely, he felt at peace with it. Resolved to ask Hinata to be his girlfriend, he returned to the scroll. At the bottom, 3 storage seals caught his eye. Releasing them, he examined what had been stored inside. The first scroll contained extensive details about the Flying Thunder God technique, though much of it was complex seal work that he didn't fully understand yet. Setting it aside, he moved on. The second scroll held instructions for the Rasengan. Despite its power, the notes confirmed it was incomplete. Determined to finish what his father started, Naruto turned to the last seal. The third item was a letter. Dear Naruto, my name is Kushina Uzumaki. I'm your mother. I just found out I'm pregnant and I'm beyond happy. I'm writing this in case anything happens, so you'll always know how much I love you. Sealed within this scroll is our family's sword. I never used it myself, but I'm leaving it for you. The blade is called Katahenka, or Shapeshift. It was crafted specifically for shinobi with 2 main conditions. It had to be nearly indestructible and adaptable to the user's style. Both requirements were met using seals. The original form of the blade is 7 feet long and 1 foot wide, with a 3-foot handle. But thanks to its seals, you can reshape it into any single-edged sword you like. It may not be ornate, but it's reliable and strong, just like I hope you'll be. With love, Kushina Uzumaki. Tears rolled down Naruto's cheeks. This letter, this sword, was more proof that he had been loved. He quickly released the blade, only for it to crash to the floor due to its enormous size. It looked like a massive slab of metal with an edge. Smiling faintly, Naruto resealed everything but the Rasengan scroll, then stepped outside to start his training. Rin's house. Night. It had been an hour since dinner, and with Rin no longer instructing them in medical ninjutsu, Naruto decided now was the time to talk to Hinata. He entered their room and saw her sitting on the bed, reading a scroll on the 8 trigrams 64 palms technique. Mind if I sit here? He asked, gesturing beside her. She glanced up and smiled softly. Go ahead. Sitting beside her, Naruto met her gaze and suddenly felt his heart pounding. Steeling himself, he began, Hinata, we've been close friends for years now, but lately I've realized my feelings have deepened. I wanted to ask, would you be my girlfriend? Hinata blinked at him, stunned. Then, without a word, she blushed and fainted, smiling as she fell back. Naruto blinked, unsure what to make of her reaction. Still, the smile gave him hope. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder and shook her slightly. As she stirred, he removed his hand and waited patiently. When she sat up and saw Naruto still there, the memory of his question quickly came back. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him and whispered, Yes, I'd love to. Naruto was caught off guard but overjoyed. She pulled away slightly, looking up at him with warmth in her eyes. He leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. Starting a passionate kiss, neither would forget. Unlocking the gates is classified as a forbidden technique, Naruto. It unleashes a massive chakra surge and removes the physical limits of your body. While it gives you incredible power, it also destroys your muscles when the gate closes, Rin explained. Oh, Naruto murmured, not liking that concept at all. That said, Rin continued, I believe that in your case, it was actually the best thing you could have done. What do you mean? Naruto asked, genuinely interested now. Besides allowing you to protect Hinata, it also accelerated changes your body was already going through. Changes? Naruto blinked. Before I get into that, do you recall when you were 3 and saved Hinata, ending up hospitalized for 2 weeks? Rin asked. Yeah, Naruto replied, cringing slightly at the memory. Well, what you didn't know is that your injuries weren't the only reason you were out cold. You accessed the Nine-Tails chakra back then, but your body couldn't handle it, she said. I did? Naruto looked surprised, unsure if he wanted to hear the rest. Yes. According to your medical records, the chakra had started damaging you from within. But somehow, your chakra core began adapting, producing a new kind of chakra that formed a shield around the seal. This kept the fox's energy from hurting you further, Rin explained. So, I have a different type of chakra now, Naruto asked. You do, and based on my findings, that chakra is the reason you recover so fast, Rin confirmed. As for the changes I mentioned, Rin went on, your new chakra has been slowly altering your body. But when you opened the gate, the transformation finished. Your old chakra was forced out, and your body completed its adjustment to the new energy. So, what exactly changed? Naruto asked with growing curiosity. For one, your healing has improved dramatically, Rin replied. But I already healed fast, Naruto noted, puzzled. You did, but now your body can repair itself even without using chakra. On top of that, your immune system has strengthened. It's unlikely you'll fall ill, and you'll build resistance to toxins much faster than normal, Rin explained. So, I can't be poisoned? Naruto asked. Well, if you build enough tolerance to a specific poison, only a very strong dose would be fatal. Smaller doses might still slow you down, so it's better not to get poisoned at all, Rin advised. There's more, she added. My scan showed odd bone formations on your upper back and new muscle tissue forming around them. They aren't fully developed yet, so we'll have to wait and see what they become. As for the final 2 changes, Rin said, reaching into her pouch, you should see them yourself. Naruto took the mirror she handed him and looked at his reflection. The first thing he saw was that his whisker-like markings had vanished, leaving no trace behind. Oddly, he didn't mind. Those marks always reminded him of the burden he carried. It took a second to notice the next change. But once he did, his eyes widened. His sclera had turned pale blue, and the iris and pupil had merged into a single hue of deep ocean blue. Does this mean I have a special eye technique? He asked Rin. It's possible. Try focusing chakra into them and see what happens, she instructed. Forming the ram seal, Naruto did as told. Things seem a little clearer, Rin thought for a moment. Well, if your vision improved but your eyes didn't change appearance, then it's likely your ninjutsu, if it is one, doesn't rely on chakra to activate. That reaction happens to any shinobi channeling chakra. Oh, Naruto said, a bit let down. Don't be too disappointed. Those with special eyes often grow dependent on them. Besides, Rin added teasingly, if Hinata's face is any clue, the new look suits you. Naruto turned to Hinata, catching her staring with a blush. She let out a small squeak and quickly looked away. Rin chuckled before addressing them both again. Now that's settled, I want you two to get proper rest. Tomorrow, Haruka and I are stepping up your training after everything that's happened, she said, leaving the room. Hinata yawned and headed toward her bed when Naruto asked, Do you really think I look better now? Turning to him, she replied softly, Yes. All right, good night, Hinata-chan. Good night, Naruto-kun. Forest, the morning sun, had barely risen when Rin kept her promise, waking both Naruto and Hinata to begin their training regimen. Before long, the two were dressed and standing outside, awaiting further instructions from Rin and Haruka. Haruka stepped forward and addressed them. Based on the basic education you've both received this past year, you should know that shinobi combat is split into 3 main forms: taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. We won't be introducing you to ninjutsu or genjutsu just yet, but we will be focusing on taijutsu. That's because if you can't hold your ground in close combat, then anyone who gets in your face can overwhelm you. Hinata, I'll be guiding you in the gentle fist style, which was created for those with the Byakugan. Naruto, Rin will be teaching you the basics of medical taijutsu, This involves evading enemy attacks and hitting back with precision. Haruka continued. Each morning from 8 to 10, the two of you will drill the kata for these techniques while we observe and correct any errors. Once you've committed the forms to memory, we'll begin sparring, Naruto with Rin and Hinata with me. To start with, you won't be using chakra. Eventually, you'll alternate sparring between us or even each other. When that time comes, we'll also add weights to your gear to help improve your physical strength, agility, and stamina, Haruka added before gesturing to Rin. Picking up where Haruka left off, Rin continued. From 10 to 11, you'll be doing chakra control drills. These will help you gain mastery over your chakra and gradually build up your reserves in preparation for learning ninjutsu and genjutsu. Between 11 and noon, we'll do meditation training. That will enhance your mental focus, enabling you to perform tasks without being sidetracked, and teach you patience. A shinobi must often remain completely still and silent while waiting for the perfect moment to strike, Rin explained further. After a lunch break from 12 to 1, we'll cover stealth techniques. You'll learn to sense chakra and how to hide your own presence so other shinobi can't easily track you, she said. Then, from 3 to 4, we'll assign you simplified versions of D-rank missions. Speaking of which, Rin added, turning toward Haruka, is that nuisance cat Tora still giving the rookie genin a hard time in the village? Haruka chuckled. Still at it, or rather her offspring is. I'm convinced the daimyo is breeding those felines just for laughs. That would explain it. We must be on the third generation of Tora by now, Rin said with a grin. Anyway, after those missions, we'll take a break until 7. Then I'll instruct you in basic medical knowledge. You never know when someone close to you might need emergency care, Rin finished. She then outlined the full schedule. 8 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock a.m., Taijutsu, training 10 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. chakra control practice, 11 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Meditation 12 o'clock p.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. lunch, break 1 o'clock p.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Stealth techniques 3 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. D-rank mission simulations, 4 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. Free time/dinner 7 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Basic medical lessons, any questions? Rin asked. Are we doing this every single day? Hinata questioned. We'll take Sundays off, Rin responded, giving a slight smile and waiting to see if anyone else had concerns. With no further questions, she nodded. Well, it's 9 now, which gives us 1 hour of taijutsu. Let's get moving. Rin's home, the group sat in quiet focus, mid-meditation inside Rin's home. It had been 3 days since they began this daily schedule, and by the end of each day, both Naruto and Hinata were visibly drained. The only thing Naruto couldn't wrap his head around was how normal chores were being disguised as training exercises. So far, they'd pulled weeds from the garden, helped cook meals, and even chased after a fox. That last one baffled Naruto. What possible value was there in trying to catch a fox? Sure, Rin and Haruka said it was a lesson in tracking and stealth, but after hearing the stories about what happened to those assigned to catch that Tora cat, Naruto had his doubts. He suspected the adults just wanted to make them suffer too. Noticing his thoughts drifting again, Naruto refocused and returned to meditating. Mindscape Naruto felt a strange sensation washing over him. He opened his eyes, only to find himself somewhere entirely different. Gone was the warm interior of Rin's home. Now he was standing in a wooden hallway, soft carpet beneath his feet and polished walls around him. He stood slowly and began to walk down the corridor, cautious and alert in case this place was dangerous. Approaching a door, Naruto cracked it open. What he saw left him confused. Inside, Haruka and Rin were giving the exact same training explanation they'd shared 3 days ago. Closing the door, Naruto frowned. Something was definitely not normal. Was this his mind? Or had someone set up an elaborate jutsu to scan his memories? He figured it was more likely that he was inside his own head. He kept walking through the strange halls until a warm red and golden glow at the end of one corridor caught his attention. Following the light, he entered a room dominated by an enormous gate at the far end. It was sealed by a single talisman, and the rusted bars suggested great age. But what really drew his gaze was the massive golden wall outside the gate. It stretched from floor to ceiling, shimmering faintly. Every so often, a patch would glow briefly red. His thoughts were interrupted by a thunderous voice booming from within the gate. So, the little weakling who's supposed to be my warden finally shows up. Naruto turned sharply. From the shadows, two enormous crimson eyes stared back, eyes full of menace. Behind them, he could make out the unmistakable shape of a colossal nine-tailed fox. You're the Nine-Tails, Naruto breathed, realization dawning. Congratulations. Took you long enough, Runt, the fox mocked. Hey, it's not like I meet giant demon foxes every day, Naruto snapped back. Be grateful for that. If I weren't sealed away, you'd already be a smear beneath my claws. The Kyuubi snarled, unleashing a wave of killing intent. Though the golden wall muffled most of it, Naruto still felt the weight of true danger. After a moment of silence, Naruto asked, Why did you attack the village? I heard some shinobi there thought he was invincible. I wanted to prove him wrong by tearing everything down, the beast answered bitterly. Didn't quite go the way you hoped, Naruto remarked with a smirk. Get out! The Kyuubi roared, unleashing another pulse of terrifying energy that made Naruto's instincts scream run. Without hesitation, Naruto turned and fled. Just then, a door appeared beside him with the word exit written on it. Well, that was convenient, he muttered, opening the door and stepping through. Rin's home, Naruto's eyes blinked open. Rin, Haruka, and Hinata were all gathered around, trying to bring him back to awareness. When he finally came to, they bombarded him with questions. He shared everything he'd seen and experienced. To say they were surprised would be an understatement. Still, they couldn't help but chuckle when Naruto casually mentioned how he managed to irritate the fearsome Nine-Tails. Agreeing they'd had enough meditation for the day, they all got up and made their way toward lunch. Forest, Hinata stood quietly, her eyes fixed on Naruto as he sparred with Rin, attempting a leg sweep to catch her off balance. There was something mesmerizing about the way Naruto trained. Every time he got knocked down, he bounced back up with unwavering resolve, eager to absorb all he could. It was the same in all areas. No matter the task, he poured his full effort into it. Watching him strive like that sparked something inside her, pushing her to give her best as well. Over the past several weeks, she realized his presence had a unique effect on her. She felt drawn to him, often gravitating toward his company whenever she had free time. Whatever activity they were doing, she found herself genuinely enjoying every moment of it. That morning had started with their usual taijutsu drills, and even during their sparring, she could tell both of them were having fun testing their abilities. She had also begun noticing subtle things about Naruto's behavior. He seemed to be doing what she was, seeking out more time together, but unlike her, he didn't seem to be aware of it. The thought that he might enjoy her company as much as she did his never failed to brighten her mood. Eventually, as these feelings grew clearer, she came to a realization. She was starting to develop a crush on Naruto, and the thought genuinely made her happy. When she confided in her mother, the response was gentle and supportive. Her mother reminded her they were still young and had plenty of time, but if anything came of it, she would be glad for them. Hinata was grateful for the encouragement. For now, though, she was content simply being by Naruto's side whenever she could. Forest Stream, Rin led the way to a nearby stream nestled within the valley, with Naruto and Hinata trailing after her. In her eyes, the two of them had progressed significantly. They'd picked up new chakra control techniques, such as keeping their bodies warm in cold water and guiding droplets along different limbs. Their progress extended into other areas as well. Hinata, for instance, had shown great promise in tracking exercises, able to follow trails with ease. Naruto, meanwhile, had a gift for stealth, frequently managing to sneak up on Rin or Haruka and give them a mild scare when he suddenly spoke up. Their taijutsu skills were also steadily advancing, and soon they'd be ready to rotate sparring partners to further sharpen their abilities. But today's session was about expanding their knowledge even further. All right, Rin said once both kids had caught up, we're going to make some adjustments to our training routine. From now on, she added, watching their reactions, we'll no longer be focusing on meditation or those painfully dull D-rank missions. Naruto immediately let out a triumphant shout, celebrating the announcement. Hinata simply gave a soft, satisfied smile. Once Naruto had calmed down, Rin went on, we'll keep our morning taijutsu and chakra control sessions. Stealth training will now take place right before lunch. After that, we'll shift focus to mastering the basic academy techniques, which I expect you both to learn before I teach anything else. It is, but honestly we prepared for this, Haruka replied. Good, now then have you decided on a new family name? The Hokage asked, grabbing the stack of new ids. Yes. I want to be called Yasuharu, it means tranquil spring, Haruka responded. That suits you and your daughters perfectly. You're some of the gentlest souls I know, the Hawkage said with a smile, beginning to fill in the forms. Thank you, Haruka replied quietly. Well, Naruto opted to leave his surname blank for now, so we can move on, Sarutobi continued. I've been in contact with Rin. She'll be waiting in a clearing about 2 kilometers from the main gate on the road to Otofukugai, so meeting her shouldn't be an issue. That's great. Has she already mapped out the journey, or is she waiting for us? Haruka asked. We both thought it best to plan everything beforehand so you could leave immediately, Sarutobi replied. All right, so what's the route? Haruka questioned. She intends to depart as soon as you arrive, head straight for Otofukugai, spend a couple of nights there gathering supplies, and then continue toward the border. Afterward, she'll stop at the Chamise tea house for a break before making her way home, explained the third. That works for me. Is there anything else? Haruka asked. Just one last item, the third said, pulling out a backpack. I placed everything you intended to take inside storage scrolls in here. That way, it'll be easier for you to carry it all and still hold Hanabi. Thanks so much, Haruka said sincerely. Hawkage Tower Basement. When they reached the tower's basement, Haruka and Sarutobi found Naruto and Hinata curled up together asleep, sandwiched between 2 fully open sleeping bags, using one as bedding and the other as a cover. With a light chuckle, the third Hawkage asked, So, when do you think you'll need to give them the talk? Hopefully not anytime soon, Haruka replied with a tired sigh, clearly dreading that responsibility. Well, let's wake them up so we can move forward, Sarutobi said, proceeding to gently rouse the children. Once awake, both kids rushed over, cheerfully greeting Haruka and cooing over the baby Hanabi. When things settled, Sarutobi used a series of minor genjutsu spells to alter the children's appearances, while Haruka employed a transformation jutsu on herself and added makeup to hide Naruto's whisker marks. They then changed outfits behind a screen to help blend in. By the end, they looked like any other civilian family. Naruto now had brown hair, green eyes, and wore a plain t-shirt with long pants. The girls had brown hair, blue eyes, and wore casual dresses. Satisfied, they began their journey out of Konoha to rendezvous with Rin. Forest clearing 2 hours had passed since they had departed from Konoha, and at last, they arrived at the clearing where they were scheduled to rendezvous with Rin. As they entered the open area, they spotted a young woman leaning against a tree, appearing as though she had dozed off in that very spot. Sensing the newcomers, the woman lifted her head and asked, Would one of you happen to be Haruka? Haruka gave a soft smile and responded, That would be me. A pleasure to finally meet you, Haruka. I'm Rin, she said with a warm smile, extending her hand. Haruka accepted the handshake and replied, Likewise, Rin, and thank you again for letting us stay with you. Don't mention it, Rin waved it off before asking, And what are your children's names? Haruka chuckled gently and said, The little one I'm holding is Hanabi, and the shy girl next to me is Hinata. Hello, Hinata, Rin greeted kindly. Hi, Hinata responded quietly. Rin then turned to the boy standing near Hinata and asked, And what about you, young man? What's your name? Naruto had been oddly silent, weighing whether this woman could be trusted. But now, having made up his mind, he replied in his usual enthusiastic tone, Hi, I'm Naruto. Nice to meet you, Naruto, Rin said, earning a grin from him. With introductions out of the way, Rin turned back toward Haruka. Well, now that we all know each other, we should probably get going if we want to reach Otofukugai before nightfall, Rin suggested. You're right. It'll be dark by the time we arrive, and I'd rather not spend the night outside with Hanabi, Haruka agreed. No need to worry, I've already arranged rooms for us ahead of time, Rin reassured her. That's a relief, Haruka replied gratefully. Hotel room, they reached the town just after dusk, but with a bright full moon above, visibility was still good. Soon after arriving, they checked into the inn and began getting ready to rest for the night. Now morning had arrived, and Rin had only one thing on her mind as she moved around the room rousing everyone shopping. All right, up and at it. It's time to go shopping, Rin called out while gently shaking the others awake. What's the hurry? Haruka asked groggily as she got out of bed. No rush, but I figured everyone would enjoy having fresh clothes since you didn't bring much along, Rin explained, heading over to wake a stubborn Naruto. Come on, Naruto, rise and shine. We've got a busy day, she said while trying to nudge him awake. Naruto, still half asleep, swatted in her direction, mumbling something about annoying landlords. Any suggestions on how to get him up? Rin asked, slightly amused. Hinata quietly stepped forward and gave Naruto a soft shake. Naruto, it's time to wake up, she said sweetly. That approach seemed to work, as Naruto's eyes fluttered open, and he instinctively pulled the blushing girl onto his bed. He blinked at her, confusion clouding his face as he tried to comprehend what was happening. Once reality hit, he muttered, "Good morning, Hinata-chan. Why are you on my bed?" "You pulled me in when I tried to wake you up," Hinata explained, her cheeks glowing. "Oh, sorry about that," Naruto said sheepishly. Seeing the moment had passed, Rin clapped her hands to get their attention. "Okay, lovebirds, if you're done gawking at each other, we've got things to do," she said with a grin as she headed for the kitchen, leaving the flustered pair behind. An hour later, they were stepping outside, ready for the day. Ninja Supply Shop, 2 hours had gone by since they'd left the inn, and they had already stopped at a clothing store for some new outfits. Naruto had no idea that picking clothes could take so long, but seeing the final results, he admitted it had been worth it. Now, they were entering one of Rin's favorite specialty stores. While not widely known in Otafukugai, the store clearly stocked quality gear for nearly every ninja-related need. "All right, you two," Haruka said to Hinata and Naruto. "Once we reach Rin's place, we'll start your studies, though training won't begin immediately. Still, it's good to have tools ready to avoid an extra trip." Haruka sent the kids off to browse, while she and Rin gathered essential supplies. An hour later, they emerged with a solid stash: basic gear, chakra control scrolls, and extra sealing materials. Hobby store. After enjoying a relaxing lunch, Rin led the group into a cozy hobby shop located in the heart of town. "Why are we here?" Haruka asked, curious. "Well, my home is pretty remote and it can get dull sometimes, so I thought we could pick up hobbies to keep things lively," Rin explained. "That makes sense," Haruka nodded. Inside, they were surprised by the variety. From painting sets to gardening tools, the store was impressively stocked. "How do you even find shops like these? Every place we've visited so far has been top-notch," Haruka noted. "When I first came here, I spent a couple days just exploring shops and seeing what they carried. Turned out to be a good decision," Rin said with a smile. Since this was their last stop, they took their time. After an hour, everyone had found something that caught their interest. Haruka returned to painting, a passion she had set aside due to motherhood and clan duties. Hinata chose flower pressing, inspired by the blossoms she'd often admired back in Konoha. Naruto picked gardening, especially flowers, which delighted Hinata once she found out. Rin didn't choose anything new, but her large bag was filled with different seed packets. With their choices made, they paid at the counter and headed back. Hotel room. Back in their rooms, Rin began sealing the day's purchases into scrolls for easy transport. Curious, Naruto asked, "What's in that big bag you brought, Rin?" "Oh, just seeds. I've got a good plot of land and instead of letting it sit, I grow seasonal veggies. Saves me some trips to town," she replied. "And you? Why gardening supplies?" she asked Naruto in return. "Well, back in the village, the old man Hawkage gave me some seeds for my birthday. It gave me something to do. I found I liked caring for them, so I figured I'd try growing a few more things," Naruto answered. "What kind of seeds were they?" Rin asked, already suspecting he had brought them along. "I think he called them chakra trees or something," Naruto answered thoughtfully. "Chakra trees? That's a rare kind of plant. Sounds like the Hawkage really cares about you," Rin said, a bit surprised. "Thanks," Naruto replied with a smile. Shami's tea house. A week later, they had finally crossed into tea country, leaving Otafukugai behind. The journey had been peaceful for the most part. One group of shinobi had passed them by, but paid them no attention. Now, they were taking a break at the well-known Shami's tea house, and it quickly became obvious why Rin had insisted on stopping here. The cakes and muffins were heavenly, lifting their spirits after days on the road. With a few treats packed for later, they resumed their journey, refreshed and content. A hidden valley. After nearly half a week journeying down the western edge of tea country, they had finally arrived at their intended location. As they climbed the final hill toward the valley Rin called home, the view that unfolded was nothing short of breathtaking. The valley stretched out over several kilometers, with a small river winding gently through its center. It was roughly 500 meters across at its widest, with soft inclines rolling outward before transforming into sheer cliffs that rose nearly 50 meters into the sky. Inside the valley, a rich woodland thrived, dotted with occasional clearings about 100 meters in length. Blossoming trees painted the scenery in bursts of red, yellow, and blue. Staring in awe, Naruto spoke what they were all thinking. Wow. I know, it's beautiful. Probably one of the most peaceful places in all of Tea Country. But because it's so difficult to get supplies in and out, hardly anyone moves here, so it stays untouched, Rin explained. They lingered a bit longer, taking in the scenery, until Rin clapped her hands together lightly. All right, time to get moving. My house is in the third clearing. Rin's house. When they reached the clearing, they stepped into the modest home and each took a seat to rest. The house was a one-story structure with 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, kitchen, dining area, a study, and a cozy living room. Before we settle in, I think we should figure out where everyone's sleeping. That way, when we're tired, we can just crash, Rin suggested. Good call. After traveling for 2 weeks straight, I'm completely drained, Haruka agreed. Since there are 3 bedrooms, and one is already mine, I think Haruka and Hanabi should take one room. That way, Haruka won't disturb anyone if she needs to tend to Hanabi during the night. Naruto and Hinata can share the other room, Rin proposed. Sounds good. Which room is which? Haruka asked. The first door on the left is for Naruto and Hinata. The second one will be yours. My room is at the end of the hall. Don't worry about beds. I made sure the house was ready when I invited you all, Rin replied. Great, that works, Haruka responded. Then Rin turned to Naruto and Hinata. Next up, your education. Since we're far from any schools, we'll have to teach you ourselves. Looking at Haruka, she continued, we'll cover reading, writing, and basic math, of course. But what else should we include? Haruka pondered for a moment. We'll definitely need to teach Naruto how to tap into his chakra, and both of them need to practice control exercises. The earlier they learn, the better. Rin nodded, then addressed the children. Do either of you know how to swim? They both shook their heads. Well, swimming lessons will be part of it too, she said with a smile. They should also learn to cook. We won't always be around to prepare meals, Haruka added. Very true, so that's everything for now, Rin asked. Yes, at least what we can't postpone, Haruka confirmed. In that case, let's leave the unpacking for tomorrow. I need sleep, Rin said with a tired sigh. Everyone agreed and went off to their rooms to get some rest. The next morning, they emerged from their rooms one by one, sharing a simple breakfast of fruit. Once done, Haruka pulled out several scrolls from her travel pack and began unsealing them, preparing things they'd need. Among them were 2 clearly labeled scrolls, Naruto's and Hinata's belongings. Naruto's held a frog-shaped wallet, a scroll passed down from his father, 4 young chakra saplings about a foot tall, and a photo album containing pictures of times he and Hinata spent together under the watch of Sarutobi and Haruka. Hinata's scroll revealed a plush fox gifted by her mother and a photo of her with her pregnant mother. They each organized their belongings in their rooms, except the saplings, which raised the question of where to plant them. After a short conversation with Rin, they agreed on a small patch of land a bit away from the house, where Naruto could also start a flower garden. By sunset, they could honestly say the valley felt like home. 1 month had passed since they'd settled in, and everything had gone smoothly. Naruto and Hinata had been learning daily, covering reading, writing, and swimming. But today marked something new, Naruto's first chakra lesson. Everyone gathered to watch. All right, Naruto, form the ram hand seal like this, Rin said, demonstrating it. Once he mimicked it correctly, she continued, good. Now focus inward and try to sense your chakra. You'll probably feel it first around your stomach area. Okay, Naruto nodded, concentrating hard. Nothing happened for several minutes, which was normal, as beginners usually took time to get a feel for it. After a little while, though, it was clear he was making headway. His chakra began to radiate outward, already at a level equal to a genin. Minutes later, it stabilized around low to mid-chunin levels. This stunned everyone. Naruto wasn't even academy age yet. More surprising was how his chakra felt. It exuded quiet power, yet had a calm presence, like someone strong who'd never harm without cause. Shaking off the surprise, Rin praised him. You did well, Naruto. And Haruka, you were right. With this much chakra, he'll need excellent control. She turned to Naruto again. Now that you can access it, start practicing to do it faster. I'll get it down before the day's over, Naruto said confidently. In that case, I'll make you a deal. If you manage it by day's end, I'll teach you something new tomorrow. But if not, you're on dish duty tonight, Rin teased. Naruto smirked and nodded in agreement. Watching the exchange, Haruka leaned over to Rin. Just so you know, betting against Naruto isn't smart. You'll lose every time. Oh, why's that? Rin asked. Well, I've seen the Hawkage lose over 20 bets to him. Never once won, Haruka replied. Rin looked mildly concerned but shrugged. At worst, she'd just have to teach another lesson. Sure enough, by late afternoon, Naruto had done it. He could now access his chakra almost instantly. Another lesson learned. Never bet against Naruto Uzumaki. Rin's cottage. A full year had passed since their arrival at Rin's place, and in that time, their days had remained quite full. Both Naruto and Hinata had embraced their lessons diligently and had improved to where they could now read and write competently, though they still stumbled on occasion. The same applied to their math skills. Despite their progress, they continued practicing to improve further, and their learning had now expanded to include more advanced topics like grammar and geography. Their academic subjects also broadened to include history and known facts about Konoha's clans, particularly the Hyuga, since they had no idea when they might come across another member from the clan. On the physical side of their training, they'd made significant strides as well. They started off by memorizing hand signs and learning how to swim, eventually progressing to tree hopping and mastering techniques to avoid injuries from falls. One of the biggest milestones was chakra control. They had completed beginner-level tasks like sticking leaves to their foreheads, scaling trees, and walking atop water. After mastering those, they were challenged to do two control exercises simultaneously, such as tree walking and leaf focus, to build their multitasking abilities. The rationale was that, in combat, they'd be far more efficient if they could cling to a surface and cast a jutsu without splitting their focus completely. Despite their packed schedules, they still carved out moments to unwind or just enjoy themselves. But today, they had different plans. They decided to go to the beach to relax and escape their routine for a while. Coastline. After preparing what they needed and changing into beachwear, they left the house, followed the nearby stream to the western shore of Tea Country, and then walked southward to a secluded cove with a small cave tucked to the side, just tall enough for someone to stand inside. The cove was nearly a perfect circle, with a small opening for the ocean to flow in and out, shielded by large rocks that prevented waves from eroding the sandy shore. We're here, Rin said as they stepped onto the sand. This place is beautiful, Haruka commented, glancing around. Yes, before you all came along, I used to have a lot of spare time, so I would wander through Tea Country looking for hidden gems. That's how I found a few secret spots like this, Rin replied while setting up her towel. Sounds like life wasn't so bad without us, Haruka teased. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the piece, but it was also very lonely, Rin admitted, now watching Naruto and Hinata splashing each other in the shallow water. So you were excited when we moved in? Haruka asked. Absolutely. The moment I heard about your situation, I welcomed the chance for companionship. Sure, I could have visited the nearby towns, but there was something thrilling about exploring the countryside, Rin explained. That makes sense. It can get monotonous without a change of pace, Haruka agreed, turning her gaze to watch Hinata hop onto Naruto's back, giggling. They enjoyed a few hours of calm before clouds began to gather. With a storm looming, Rin led them into the cave near the cove. The cave sloped gently upward, leading to a chamber that featured unusual markings etched into the walls. Rin approached one side and channeled chakra into a set of seals. Instantly, the area filled with light and warmth as the markings began to glow. These are the only seals I specifically studied, after too many cold nights spent in dark caves. When I discovered this one, I made it more comfortable knowing I'd likely return, she explained. They ended up spending the night there, which was a relief for Haruka. She wasn't eager to carry Hanabi home through heavy rain, which was now pouring steadily outside. The next morning, after a restful night and a quick breakfast from unsealed supplies, they began their return journey. Halfway along the shore, Naruto suddenly realized he needed to relieve himself. They all agreed to separate for a moment to take care of nature's call. After walking a bit inland, Naruto decided he had gone far enough and began his business. That's when he heard a noise nearby and, curious, decided to check it out. To his shock, he stumbled upon what looked like a small encampment. Before he could retreat, he was spotted. Several rough-looking men rushed at him. Naruto turned and fled, but they gained on him fast. One of them tackled him hard into a tree, knocking him to the ground, and his vision began to fade. Meanwhile, back at the beach, The others had regrouped and were starting to worry about Naruto. They followed his trail into the woods, recognizing the signs of a pursuit. Tracking the disturbance to its source, they found the camp Naruto had discovered. The camp had multiple tents, crates, and about 20 men, clearly bandits. What caught their attention was two of them dragging an unconscious Naruto toward a tent. Without hesitation, Rin stepped forward into the open. "You have two options: release Naruto and we walk away, or prepare to be beaten," she declared. Not recognizing Rin as a kunoichi, the bandits charged in blindly. It wasn't long before they realized they were hopelessly outmatched. While Rin handled the bulk of the enemies, Haruka and Hinata circled around to try and wake Naruto. A bit of shaking roused him, but some of the bandits noticed and moved in to intercept. Haruka defended them as best she could, but with Hanabi in her arms, she was at a disadvantage. One bandit managed to slip past and landed a solid punch into Hinata's gut, knocking her to the ground and knocking the air out of her. Naruto, watching his closest friend collapse, prepared to strike the attacker, but then noticed her bleeding from a scrape on her arm. The bandit chuckled at her injury, enraging Naruto even more. That mocking laugh was the last straw. Something inside Naruto snapped. His chakra surged violently, blowing his hair back in an invisible breeze. A faint golden shimmer lit up his body. Naruto lunged at the attacker and began pummeling him. Each hit made his limbs ache, but he powered through it. Rin, having just finished her own skirmish, quickly stepped in and rendered the bandit unconscious. With the threat gone, Naruto ran to Hinata and examined her injury, a minor cut. Then, as he held her arm, a soft golden light wrapped around it and began healing the wound. With the danger past, his adrenaline crashed. Pain and fatigue overtook him, and Naruto collapsed to the ground. Woods Hinata knelt on the forest floor, cradling Naruto gently in her arms, while Rin checked him over for any serious harm. The faint look of discomfort still lingered on his face from the moment he had collapsed. When Rin's hands stopped glowing, Hinata raised her eyes to her, silently hoping for good news. Rin gave her a reassuring smile before saying, "He's all right. It looks like he unlocked one of the inner gates when you were hurt. His current state is due to chakra depletion and a heavy buildup of lactic acid in his muscles from overexertion." Lactic acid? Hinata echoed curiously. It's a substance the body produces when your muscles don't get enough oxygen during extreme physical effort. It's the reason your limbs burn when you push them too hard. With how much of it he's carrying, it's no wonder he's in pain, Rin explained. "Oh," Hinata mumbled, glancing down at Naruto. "We need to head back so he can rest properly and I can perform a more detailed checkup," Rin said, preparing to lift Naruto up. As Hinata gave him one last glance before they departed, she asked, "Don't his whisker marks look fainter than before?" Rin's cabin. A full day had passed since Naruto had blacked out, and Hinata was starting to grow anxious. He never usually took this long to recover. She had stayed by his bedside since they returned, quietly watching over him. Finally hearing a small stir, she rushed out to notify Rin. A few moments later, Rin entered with Hinata right behind her, just in time to see Naruto's eyes slowly open. She approached his bed and asked, "How are you feeling?" Naruto looked up at her and replied, "Just a little drained." "That's understandable," Rin said. "You managed to unlock one of the chakra gates. That's not something just anyone can do without proper training, so you've achieved something quite rare." Naruto smiled faintly at the praise, a bit of pride showing through. "However, don't ever do it again," Rin added firmly. The smile faded into confusion. "Huh. Do you recall our earlier conversation regarding Hayashi?" she asked while settling into a chair nearby. "I had a feeling we'd revisit that topic," Sarutobi answered knowingly. "Why do you say that?" Haruka asked, curiosity in her eyes. "Well, I've noticed Hinata growing uneasy every time she prepares to leave for home," the Hokage said, concern in his voice. "That makes sense. Hayashi's demands are becoming more unreasonable. He reprimands Hinata for even the smallest mistake during training. He's growing cold, not just to her but to me as well," Haruka said, her worry evident. "That is certainly troubling, but you know Konoha's laws. Clan affairs, especially training methods, are handled internally unless there's an external threat," the Hokage explained. "I understand," Haruka nodded. "Which is why I've devised a solution myself." She looked around, then leaned in slightly. "Could you use your silencing seals? I'd rather not have this reach Hayashi." The Hokage subtly signaled the Anbu to leave before applying seals to the room's walls. After settling back in his chair and lighting his pipe, he asked, "All right, what's your plan?" "In short, I plan to leave the village with my daughters," Haruka answered, watching his expression. "And when would this happen?" he asked calmly. "Roughly a month after I give birth," she responded. He took a moment before saying, "You do realize the clan might come after you?" "Yes, but not if they believe we didn't survive," Haruka stated with firm resolve. "That would definitely stop them from looking," Sarutobi admitted. Then a thought crossed his mind. Remembering an old promise, he asked, "Haruka, would you be willing to take Naruto with you when you go?" Caught off guard, Haruka blinked. "Why would you want me to bring Naruto?" "I made a promise on the day he was born to find a way for him to be happy. Sadly, I don't believe he'll find that here, so I ask again, will you take him?" The Hokage said sincerely. Haruka thought for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I'll bring him. I think Hinata would be glad to have him with us." The Hokage pulled out a clean sheet of paper from his drawer. "So, how exactly do you plan on making this work?" Konoha Park. 3 months had passed since Haruka's meeting with the Hokage, and she felt confident in her decision. Hayashi's temper hadn't cooled, if anything, it had worsened. Now his frustrations spilled onto Haruka as well. He blamed her for Hinata's shortcomings, claiming she was making the girl too soft. In a way, there was truth to it. Hinata had inherited her mother's gentle nature. But Hayashi couldn't seem to grasp that he'd get better results by correcting Hinata's form rather than scolding her endlessly. As those thoughts crossed her mind, Haruka strolled through the park with Hinata, heading to their usual meetup with Naruto and the Hokage. When they arrived, Naruto spotted them first and ran up, giving both a hug before dashing off with Hinata to play. Haruka sat beside Sarutobi and greeted him. "Good morning." "Good morning," he replied. "How are the preparations coming along?" "Pretty well. I've finished copying the clan's basic jutsu scrolls, and each of us has a spare outfit packed. We'll buy the rest once we leave. The only thing missing is a place to stay once we're out of Konoha," she said. "I can help with that," Sarutobi offered. "There's a retired shinobi living in Tea Country, someone I trust. You may remember her, Rin the orphan." "Rin, the one who had a crush on Kakashi?" Haruka asked. "The same. She moved on after retiring," the Hokage confirmed. "I thought she'd passed away," Haruka said, surprised. "She just became reclusive. Most assumed as much," he explained. "Well, if you vouch for her, I won't object," Haruka said with a nod. "She's one of the few I'd entrust with Naruto's future," Sarutobi assured her. After a brief pause, Haruka asked, "And what about your end?" "It's been progressing nicely," he said. "I've gathered academy-level scrolls, chakra control exercises, and a few low-level elemental techniques. I also included light weights, they're still young after all. Plus a few extras that might be useful." "What kind of extras?" Haruka asked, intrigued. "There's a water-breathing technique, instructions for making storage and explosive seals, and even the shadow clone jutsu, though they're likely not ready for that yet. Nothing dangerous," he explained. "I've also set aside a bit of money, not much, but it should cover new clothes and about a month's worth of food. By then, I hope you'll have found a source of income," he added. "Thank you." "Truly," Haruka replied warmly. Konoha Medical Center. Haruka had been confined to a hospital bed in the Konoha Medical Center for the past 7 days. It turned out all her fears and instincts were correct. She had, according to the diagnosis, been slowly poisoned over time by none other than her own husband. The toxin was subtle at first, barely leaving any signs, but gradually it began to sap her energy, making even light training sessions exhausting. The initial time she collapsed, she sought help from the clan's healers, who found no trace of any issue. The next time, she was closer to the main hospital, but once again, nothing abnormal was detected. By the 5th episode, Haruka became determined to uncover the cause. She couldn't afford to miss her chance to escape Konoha with her daughters, so she approached the Hokage directly, desperate for answers. As usual, the third Hokage was understanding. He arranged for her to stay in a room usually kept ready for Naruto, and assigned his most trusted medical experts to investigate. It took a full hour just to discover that a rare poison was weakening her, and another hour to work on a method to safely extract it. The poison was designed to quietly deteriorate the blood's ability to carry oxygen, breaking down into components naturally found in the bloodstream, making it incredibly difficult to detect. At first, no one could guess who would want to harm Haruka, But after learning that the effects of childbirth, while poisoned, would kill the mother, but not the baby, the motive became clearer. Someone intended for her to die giving birth. In the end, both Haruka and the third Hokage were relieved they acted when they did. Now, Haruka was due to deliver within the coming days, and the situation would be turned to their benefit. Hokage's chambers, the third Hokage sat at his desk, calmly watching Naruto and Hinata seated before him. Given recent developments, both he and Haruka agreed it was time for the children to be included in their plans. It fell upon Sarutobi to break the news. Hinata, Naruto, I imagine you're wondering why I asked you here, he began, earning a verbal confirmation from Naruto and a silent nod from Hinata. He looked to Hinata first. Hinata, your mother, your soon-to-be-born sister, and you will be leaving the village soon. Hinata's face filled with shock, while Naruto's expression turned pained. He abruptly stood up, voicing his protest. He didn't want her to go. Then he sat down again, a heavy weight seeming to settle on him. The third Hokage met his eyes gently. There's no need for concern, Naruto. You'll be going with them. Instant relief swept over both children, with smiles returning to their faces. But Naruto's curiosity pushed him to ask, why do we have to leave? Sarutobi answered, there are 3 reasons. First, Hinata, your father has been treating you and your mother unkindly. Second, your mother wishes to guide your growth personally. And lastly, the Hokage hesitated slightly, your father recently attempted to end your mother's life. The revelation shocked them. Hinata began to cry, while Naruto wrapped his arms around her, unsure how to offer comfort. Before emotions could take over completely, Sarutobi reassured her. Your mother is safe, Hinata. She's in the hospital preparing to welcome your little sister. This seemed to soothe her somewhat, so he continued, Naruto, as for you, the way this village has treated you, I don't believe you'll find true happiness if you remain. Naruto looked like he wanted to argue, but after a moment of reflection, he stayed silent. He couldn't deny that joy had often eluded him. To Sarutobi, seeing Naruto that quiet felt unnatural, but he knew this might be his best chance to explain the things long kept hidden. Clearing his throat softly, he proceeded, Naruto, there are things I need to tell you. Some of it may be hard to hear, but I believe you're old enough to understand. Naruto's curiosity deepened, though a flicker of nervousness passed through him. The first thing is, I know why the villagers have treated you so harshly. Naruto shot to his feet. What? Why didn't you tell me before? The third quickly responded, because you were too young to truly grasp it. That seemed to calm Naruto somewhat, though the anger still simmered. You've heard the tale of the 9-tailed fox's attack on the village, and that the 4th Hokage stopped it. What you haven't been told is that he couldn't destroy the beast. He had to seal it. And the only vessel strong enough to contain such power was a newborn. Sarutobi looked Naruto in the eyes. You were that newborn. Shock flooded Naruto's face. After a long pause, he whispered, so am I the fox. The third Hokage smiled slightly. It was a good sign. Naruto still saw himself as human. No, Naruto, you're not the fox. It's merely sealed within you. Naruto visibly relaxed, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I also made a law preventing people from speaking of this to those too young to remember the event. It was to protect you. After letting that sink in, the Hokage continued, Naruto, if you're ready, there's more. Naruto silently wished it would end, but at least Hinata moved closer to him, wrapping her arms around him for comfort. She had been quietly absorbing everything. The idea that Naruto had been mistreated shocked her. The mention of the fox unsettled her, but once she realized it had been sealed, she felt safe. After all, sealing techniques were familiar to her. When Naruto asked if he was the fox, she'd thought it was silly. Someone like him, kind, brave, could never be a monster. Now determined to stay by his side, she hugged him tighter and stayed silent. Sarutobi noticed and smiled. Perhaps they truly would be lifelong companions. He carried on. The second thing I've kept from you is your parentage. As Naruto opened his mouth, the Hokage preempted him. The truth was hidden for your safety. If your lineage had been public, you'd have been targeted immediately. Naruto's protest died instantly. Your mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. She came from the land of whirlpools, and as far as we know, she was the last of her clan. Your father is pictured on that wall. That's Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage. Both children were stunned. Their eyes widened, their mouths hung open. Sarutobi briefly worried they had frozen completely. Eventually, Naruto turned to the portrait with a small smile. He finally had names, faces to anchor his identity, but his smile faded as a thought struck him. So, my father sealed the fox into me. Yes, the Hawkage answered honestly. He chose you because you were his son. He wouldn't ask anyone else to bear such a burden. Naruto nodded solemnly. I think I understand. I'd probably do the same. Hoping to lift the mood, Sarutobi added, he left something for you, a scroll. He asked me to give it to you when I believed you were ready. Naruto carefully took the scroll and opened it. Dear Naruto, I'm sorry for what I must do. The nine-tailed fox is coming, and sealing it is the only way to stop it. You are the only one I trust with this burden. For that, I apologize. But know this, you are not the fox, you are its jailer. In case no one has told you, I am Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hawkage and your father. Your mother and I love you deeply. Since we won't be there to see the man you become, we've left behind something to help guide you. Within this scroll are two of my greatest techniques and your mother's family sword. We ask just two things. First, avoid using my signature teleportation technique openly. It will attract too many enemies. Modify it, improve it, but don't use it as it is. Second, never sell the sword. It's an heirloom, capable of standing against even the Kusanagi. Lastly, find someone you cherish and protect them with all your heart. Love, Minato Namikaze, fourth Hawkage. By the time Naruto finished reading, tears streamed down his face. He had finally received proof his parents loved him. Sarutobi remained quiet, letting Naruto cry into Hinata's shoulder until he was ready. At last, the Hawkage spoke again, now all that remains is to plan your departure. And with that, the conversation shifted toward action. Hawkage's office. Hiruzen sat quietly in his office, reflecting on the possible aftermath of Haruka's upcoming plan and what it might mean for the village, and for the small group preparing to leave with her. Given what was about to unfold in the coming days, he was certain the repercussions would echo for years to come. After all, the Leaf would soon believe the so-called Fox Boy was dead, the Hyuga clan leader would think his wife was gone, and the entire Hyuga line would seem to have lost both heirs. But this was not the moment to dwell. There was still work to be done. Their strategy had been broken into 4 clear phases. First, the children had to be told what was going to happen and instructed to pack only their most treasured items. Second, they needed to manipulate the village into believing it had killed Naruto, and in the process, Hinata would be caught in the chaos. Third, they had to convince Hayashi Hyuga that his wife had died giving birth, and that their second child didn't make it. Lastly, all 4 of them would quietly vanish and rendezvous with Rin to begin a fresh chapter of life. The plan, in theory, seemed simple, and in truth, some parts were. The children had already been informed and had packed their gear. But steps 2 and 3 were a little more complex. Thankfully, being the Hawkage came with certain privileges. One of those was access to the Forbidden Scroll. Every Hawkage was required to study the scroll's contents in case any of the techniques were ever used against the village. That's how he discovered a solution for Phase 2. It came in the form of a forgotten clone technique. Like other clone jutsus, shadow clones designed for scouting, or water clones for combat, this one had a specific role. This technique was known as the substitute clone. From what he could tell, its only purpose was to serve as a decoy to die in place of someone else. At first, he didn't understand why anyone would invent such a jutsu. It wasn't effective in battle and certainly couldn't fool a trained shinobi. 3 reasons explained its failure as a battle tool. The clones were physically weaker than the original, unable to perform ninjutsu, and only lasted 6 hours before dissolving into dust. Even if someone thought they'd killed their target, they'd be shocked to watch the body vanish later. It wasn't until weeks later that Hiruzen understood the intent. The technique had been created for civilians to protect their families during assassination attempts. That realization made it perfect for this situation. After all, a 5-year-old wouldn't be expected to fight or use jutsu. With his mind made up, he left the office and made his way to the Hawkage Tower's hidden lower levels to begin his preparations. Hawkage Tower sublevels. Few even knew the Hawkage Tower had a basement, and fewer still knew how to access it. To Hiruzen, that made it the ideal location to carry out the second stage of Haruka's escape plan. He had just completed the necessary arrangements. 2 bags of blood had been discreetly taken from the hospital to make the clone appear real when injured. A mound of dirt had been collected. Since this clone worked similar to an Earth-style jutsu, and a large sealing circle had been drawn, allowing him to duplicate someone else, not just himself. Now came the final step, creating the decoys. Streets of Konoha night had fallen, and a faux Naruto dashed down the darkened streets, trying to reach the orphanage before curfew. Rounding a corner too quickly, he slammed into a drunken villager standing outside one of Konoha's busiest bars. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see you, said the clone nervously. It's Alri, the man began, then froze when he recognized who it was. Fear crossed the boy's face as the man's tone turned dark. So, the demon thinks it can attack people now, he slurred, his voice rising to attract others. You're gonna regret that, you little monster. Fake Naruto spun and bolted, only for the drunken man and several others to give chase. He darted through alleys and streets, eventually turning toward the edge of the village and into the trees. The mob eagerly followed, thinking it would be easier to finish him off away from the public eye. Training ground, forest edge, the fake Hinata was already waiting in the training ground, ready to play her part. She stood as the figure approached rapidly, pretending she had just awakened from a nap. Naruto-kun, why are you out here so late? She called out. Startled, the clone turned toward her, just in time to crash into her. Both hit the ground hard. Before they could move, the pursuing mob caught up. Shoving the Hyuga girl aside, they swarmed Naruto, kicking and stabbing as he begged them to stop. Hinata, unable to watch anymore, stepped into the chaos, only to stumble directly into a blade meant for Naruto. A deep cut appeared across her side as she collapsed on top of him. The crowd froze. The sight of the Hyuga heir bleeding over the demon was too much. But before they could react further, Sarutobi arrived with several anbu. The crowd was arrested, and the Hokage personally scooped up the injured children before vanishing in a blur. Konoha Medical Center Hayashi Hyuga was irritated. Woken in the middle of the night only to hear his daughter might not survive. Truthfully, he didn't care. To him, she had always been a failure and an embarrassment to the clan. But he had to pretend otherwise to maintain his image. Arriving just as the medics exited with grim expressions, he was intercepted by one. Hyuga-sama, the doctor said carefully. I regret to inform you that your daughter has passed. Hayashi remained outwardly composed. Inwardly, he welcomed the news. How did it happen? He asked calmly. She tried to shield the fox child during an attack by villagers, the medic explained. Hayashi was taken aback but dismissed the thought. It changed nothing. Waving the staff off, he entered the room briefly, standing over her body for a few minutes to appear appropriately sorrowful. When he left, he asked a nurse to cremate the remains and send the ashes to the Hyuga estate. Standard protocol to prevent clan secrets from leaking through the body. Konoha Hospital mortuary back in the morgue, Sarutobi allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Hayashi had fallen for the ruse completely. He'd expected the cremation request and was already prepared. Instead of cremating the fake body, he filled the chamber with wooden remains. The clone would disintegrate on its own soon, but Hayashi would only find ash, none the wiser. Konoha Memorial Grounds, word spread like wildfire. The fox boy was dead. Most of the village rejoiced, throwing small celebrations. Almost no one came to the funeral. The few who did, Hiruzen, the Ichirakus, a Kunoichi named Kurenai who'd heard tales from Haruka, and a handful of Anbu who'd guarded him over the years. Sarutobi silently noted their names, those few who cared. Maybe one day, they'd learn the truth. For now, he took comfort in knowing Naruto had at least a few people who mourned him. Hokage Tower sublevels. Since the cloning had been completed, both real Naruto and Hinata had been staying hidden in the secret lower level of the Hokage Tower, safe and out of sight. They didn't complain. It was only a matter of days before they would leave, and at least they had each other's company. The room was furnished with a television and a few games, small comforts gifted by the Hokage. For the moment, that was enough. The promise of a peaceful life far from Konoha gave them hope. Haruka's recovery room 2 days had passed since Naruto's burial, and Sarutobi was starting to second-guess everything. It wasn't due to doubt about the plan's effectiveness or morality, but rather because Haruka had gone into labor and was now crushing his arm while screaming a barrage of profanities that could make even the roughest shinobi blush. On the bright side, everything had been set up for the group to leave the village by the following morning. Abandoned hospital chamber, Haruka had delivered her newborn daughter, Hanabi, just hours ago with the assistance of a skilled medic named Mommy. As one of the Hokage's most dependable medical personnel, Mommy had been brought into the secret, so she could orchestrate the substitution of Haruka and Hanabi with clones. This led them to an unused hospital room, which, according to official records, had been rendered inaccessible due to severe water damage, making it unsafe for patients. In truth, Mommy and the third Hokage had filed false maintenance reports and sealed off the room so it could be repurposed for Sarutobai's clone replacement technique. The third double-checked the modified sealing arrays drawn for the technique. The adjustments were necessary because, unlike the last instance he performed it, this time the goal was to make the clones appear to have passed away naturally rather than from visible trauma. Hence, the seals were altered to produce lifeless clones from the start. Once he confirmed everything was in order, he initiated the jutsu. Konoha General Hospital Sarutobai and Mami were making their way through the hospital's corridors while transporting the two inert bodies. They'd encountered a hiccup, something they should have predicted. After all, moving corpses through a bustling medical facility wasn't exactly subtle. Fortunately, the workaround was simple. Sarutobai disguised himself as an unfamiliar physician using a transformation technique, and cast a genjutsu to make observers believe he was simply wheeling around a sleeping patient. They reached Haruka's assigned room and carefully placed the clone bodies on the bed. As the illusion wore off, Sarutobai began the walk back to clear any evidence in the other room, leaving Mami to deliver the unfortunate news to Hayashi. Hyuga Estate, Hayashi had just received the most crushing and enraging news imaginable. His wife was dead, and she had taken their newborn child with her. But it wasn't her death that truly angered him. It was the fact that her demise had also cost him the opportunity to shape the baby's future free from her soft influence. To make matters worse, he suspected his own behavior might have contributed to this loss. And now, with no wife left to bear another child, he was trapped. Trying to push aside the frustration, he decided that his only path forward was to raise his elder daughter with strength and discipline. That would have been the plan if she hadn't died as well, leaving him with no successor. Steeling himself, he headed to the village hospital. He had to keep up appearances and avoid drawing any undue attention. Konoha Mortuary Sarutobai once again found himself in the hospital's morgue, this time switching out the fabricated corpses for wood replicas. Hayashi had again requested cremation, but this time, Mami noted that he seemed more adamant about doing it quickly. Sarutobai surmised that Hayashi wanted to eliminate any evidence that might implicate him in the deaths. Though Sarutobai disliked the notion that Hayashi had attempted to harm his wife, he was willing to go along with it if it helped conceal the truth of what really transpired. With that taken care of, it was time to put the final touches on the escape plan. Hokage Tower, sneaking a supposedly dead woman out of the hospital, was surprisingly simple. They used a mild henge on Haruka to change her hair and eye color, and a small illusion on Hanabi to mask her Byakugan. Once inside the Hokage's office, they sat down to finish the paperwork before heading out to collect the rest of their party. "How are you holding up? Using chakra so soon after giving birth must be draining," asked Sarutobai. Hokage's office, Minato Namikaze, famously known as the Fourth Hokage, sat in his office contemplating his strategy to confront the Nine Tails. Just 2 days earlier, he had been informed that the mighty Kyuubi no Kitsune, the demon fox with 9 tails, was making its way toward the village. Since then, the Hokage had thrown himself into intense study and planning, but only one viable method stood out. The beast had to be sealed, not into a tool or creature, but into a human infant. The painful truth was that the only suitable vessel he could entrust this to was his own unborn son. Others were expecting children on the same day, but how could he ask another parent to make such a sacrifice if he himself wouldn't? Time slipping away, he rose from his desk and left for the hospital, ready to tell his wife the grim decision he had made. Hospital Minato arrived to learn that Kushina was already in labor. Without delay, he rushed to her side. Hours passed, and finally he found himself standing inside her hospital room, watching her gently rock their newborn son, Naruto. Kushina looked exhausted. The delivery had pushed her to the edge. Deep down, she knew her time was limited, but she was determined to remember every detail of their child. "Minato," Kushina murmured weakly, "did you figure out a way to stop the fox?" He hesitated. "I did, but it involves placing it within a newborn." She immediately understood. Her eyes welled up. "You mean Naruto?" Minato nodded solemnly, his own eyes misting. "And there's more. The only sealing jutsu that can trap the Kyuubi, it'll claim my life as well. He'll grow up alone. Why can't you choose another child? She whispered, even though she already knew the answer. Because if I can't make that choice for our child, how can I ever ask it of anyone else? In silence, they embraced, both crying, fully aware of the trials Naruto would face in the days ahead. Hokage's office that evening, Minato wept as he held his newborn in his arms. Kushina had passed. In just moments, he would give up his own life as well, completing the fated ritual that would forever shape Naruto's destiny. His predecessor, the third Hokage, had arrived upon request. Sensei, Minato began through his sorrow, I found a way to end this, but it means sealing the fox inside Naruto. Hiruzen Sarutobai's face fell. I feared this would happen. I won't try to stop you, I know how unshakable your resolve is. Minato gave a faint, sad smile. You know me well, old man, please promise me something. Try to make him a hero in the eyes of the people. I'll do what I can, Hiruzen replied, but you know how villagers can be. I do, just watch over him. Make sure he finds happiness, even in a world that might hate him. You have my word. One last thing. Minato reached into his drawer and pulled out a sealed scroll. Keep his lineage a secret. Don't tell the council. Give him this when he's old enough. He'll have enough enemies just from what's inside him. I understand. I'll wait until he's ready. Thank you. Suddenly, the doors burst open and a jounin rushed in. Hokage-sama. The Kyuubi has reached the village perimeter. Hold it off. I'll join you shortly, Minato commanded before turning to Hiruzen. Farewell, old friend, protect the leaf. I will, the third replied as he watched Minato depart, child in arms. Battlefield, the situation was bleak. Konoha's shinobi gave their all, trying to delay the monster's advance. Screams of anguish echoed across the terrain as the demon tore through their ranks, a vile laugh emanating from its maw. A tremor rippled through the ground, catching the beast's attention. Its eyes locked onto a towering toad approaching from afar. On its head stood the fourth Hokage, cradling a baby. With the fourth Minato arrived, placing Naruto atop Gamabunta's head. He looked at the infant, heart aching. I'm sorry for what I must do to you, Naruto. Someday I hope you'll understand. He turned toward the beast and shouted, Why have you come here? The fox sneered. To show this pitiful village what true fear feels like. Then I have no choice but to stop you, Minato declared, weaving hand signs rapidly. You think you can halt me? Foolish human, I'll crush you, roared the Kyuubi as it charged. But in that brief window, the jutsu was completed. A spectral form of the Shinigami emerged behind Minato, inserting its ghostly hand through his body. An ethereal arm reached from his stomach and grabbed the Kyuubi. The demon fox's arrogant smirk vanished. For the first time in centuries, it felt terror. The death god had come, and it was claiming its soul. In a flash, the Kyuubi's essence was ripped from its body and sealed into the crying child atop the giant toad. Minato looked at his son one final time. Live strong, protect those dear to you. Make us proud. With that, his spirit was taken and his body collapsed. Hokage's office, an hour had passed. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat once again as the leader of Konoha. He stared at baby Naruto sleeping peacefully, preparing for the difficult announcement to come. Little one, your path won't be easy. But I swear, I'll try to give you joy where I can. Cradling the child, he headed toward the council chambers. Council chambers as he entered, murmurs spread across the room. Many had seen the child during the chaos and now whispered among themselves. The third took his seat, facing the uneasy council. Council members, the fourth gave his life to defeat the Nine Tails. What you don't yet know is how he used a forbidden technique to call upon the Reaper and seal the beast into this child. That's the demon, one counselor blurted. We should end it while it's still helpless, cried another. A few others echoed similar sentiments, before Hiruzen slammed his hand on the table. No, he is not the Kyuubi, he's just a boy who now carries an unimaginable burden. But the whisker marks. He looks just like… Enough, Hiruzen roared. From now on, this matter is classified as an S-rank secret. Anyone who spreads word of this to the public will face execution. Do I make myself clear? But he's still… This meeting is over, he declared, standing up and exiting the chamber, baby in arms, leaving behind a stunned and angry council. Outside the orphanage, at just 3 years old, Naruto had already experienced more than most kids his age could imagine. Being the vessel of the Nine Tails had made his young life unusually difficult. Even so, despite the hardships, there were still moments that brought a smile to his face. though they were rare. Today happened to be one of those rare days. It was the one day each month when the Hokage, whom Naruto fondly referred to as the old man, would spend the entire day with him. Anyone who rose early that morning would have seen the esteemed leader of the village strolling through the streets toward a beaming Naruto, who was sitting eagerly on the orphanage steps. "Good morning, Naruto," the Hokage greeted warmly as he got closer. "Hey, old man, what are we doing today?" Naruto asked, running up and hugging him excitedly. With a chuckle, the Hokage responded, "First stop is the park. We're going to meet a friend of mine there." Naruto's grin faltered slightly. "Oh," he said uneasily. "Don't worry, Naruto. She's one of the nicest people I know," the Hokage reassured him kindly. "Really? Then let's go already," Naruto exclaimed, instantly energized again as he tugged the old man's hand, remembering that the last time he had met someone kind, it had been the owner of a ramen shop he now loved visiting. The Hokage laughed heartily as Naruto dragged him along. "Konoha Park, where are they? Where are they?" Naruto asked as they arrived, scanning the area. "Be patient, Naruto. They should arrive shortly," the Hokage replied calmly. "How about we sit on the swings while we wait?" After a few minutes of playful swinging, Sarutobi suddenly stopped the swing as he saw someone approaching. "Hey, why'd you stop?" Naruto asked. "Remember, I said we were meeting someone today." "Yeah. Well, she's standing right behind you," the Hokage said with a twinkle in his eye. Naruto spun around and, startled, fell onto the ground when he saw someone indeed standing there. "Naruto, meet Haruka Hyuga," the Hokage introduced. He then glanced at the small figure hiding behind her. "And I assume that the shy girl holding onto your dress is your daughter, Hinata." Hearing this, Naruto stepped around Haruka and saw a young girl clutching her mother's dress. Without hesitation, Naruto asked, "Wanna help me build a sandcastle?" "Why yes," Hinata replied timidly, just before Naruto took her hand and led her toward the sandbox. "So," the Hokage said after a short silence, "shall we sit?" "I think that would be nice," Haruka replied, and the two adults headed to a bench near the sandbox. "How are things going at the Hyuga estate?" asked the Hokage curiously. "Fairly well, though I do have some concerns," Haruka admitted. "Hinata's just reached the age to begin her training, but Hayashi's being awfully hard on her. He thinks she should be progressing faster." "That is troubling," the Hokage said with some concern. "Still, give him a bit more time. He's adjusting to being a teacher. It takes patience." "You're probably right, but I can't help worrying." "You're her mother. Of course you'll worry. But if it ever becomes too much, you're always welcome to come to me," he reassured her kindly. "Now then," Sarutobi said, shifting the topic, "the children seem to be getting along well." Haruka looked over to see both kids smiling as they worked together on what appeared to be a growing sandcastle. "They are. We should arrange more of these meetings. I think it would be good for Hinata to interact with someone outside the clan." "I agree. Naruto doesn't have many friends. It would do him good too," the Hokage said, a note of sadness in his tone. "Now it's your turn to stop worrying, Hokage-sama," Haruka replied with a smile. "We knew it wouldn't be easy helping him make friends." "Thank you. So how often do you think we should meet?" "How about every Sunday? Most people sleep in anyway, so the park will be quiet enough for them to have fun." "That sounds like a solid plan," the Hokage agreed. They turned back toward the sandbox just in time to see Naruto and Hinata top off a 3-foot sandcastle with the last handful of sand. "That's impressive," the Hokage called out. "I've never seen anyone use the whole sandbox for a single castle." Both children blushed proudly at the compliment. "All right, Naruto, say goodbye to your new friend." "It's almost lunchtime," the Hokage said, before turning to say his own farewells to Haruka. Naruto gave Hinata a quick hug and waved goodbye before following after the Hokage, leaving a shy, pink-cheeked Hinata behind. Ikaraku Ramen Shop. Naruto and the Hokage arrived at the ramen stand to find it empty. Naruto, taking his usual seat, shouted, "Hey, old man Ikaraku, I'm here for ramen." "Ah, Naruto. Looks like you brought someone with you today," the ramen owner replied cheerfully. "What will it be?" "I'll take miso, please." "Beef for me," Naruto chimed in before glancing around. "Is I am here?" "Yeah, I'll check if she can come out," said Tuchai before turning to the Hokage. "He seems extra happy today." "He made a new friend," the Hokage replied with a smile. "Well then, I'll call Iam so she can hear all about it," Tuchai said, clearly pleased. Tuchai disappeared into the back room, and soon Iam came out to greet them. "Good afternoon, Hokage-sama," she greeted politely, then turned her full attention to Naruto. So Naruto-kun, I hear you made a new friend today. What's their name? How do you know that? I just got here, Naruto said, confused. My dad told me, so who is it? I impressed, eager to know. Her name's Hinata. She has these really cool white eyes with a little bit of purple. They looked kinda pretty. I am let out a delighted squeal and leaned closer to Naruto, who immediately looked nervous. Ooh, so our Naruto-kun met a girl with pretty eyes, huh? Will we be seeing you walk around with your new girlfriend soon? She teased playfully. But she's already my friend, Naruto said, clearly puzzled. Don't mind her, Naruto, the Hokage chuckled. You're too young to understand what she means. Any protest Naruto might have had was quickly forgotten the moment a steaming bowl of ramen was placed in front of him. So do you think they'll end up together? Tuche asked with a grin. I hope so, the third Hokage replied. They look adorable together. Still, he clarifies that he had no role in creating Akiri, she simply hatched from an egg. Given his reputation, she takes his word for it and lets it slide. But she's starving, and all he can offer is some rock-hard bread. She requests it, and he hands it over. The moment she tries biting into it and fails miserably, her anger flares up again. Famia then realizes that Hildegard's youthful appearance isn't due to her being a demon, but rather a result of the eternal youth potion. She asks Kurt if he could make it for her too, but he admits that he hasn't encountered the rainbow leaf in ages. Hildegard apologizes, feeling sorry for being unable to help Famia. At that moment, Kurt deduces that the older-looking woman is actually Famia, Tychoon's daughter, long believed to be dead. Famia confesses that she underwent abnormal growth, which alarmed her father. Fearing public scrutiny, he faked her death to keep things hidden. But since Kurt instantly noticed her true age, she felt safe opening up to him. Kurt starts piecing things together. Why would Tychoon abduct Hildegard despite her mature appearance? Kurt recalls what the Sakura gang members said before he left, and how fishy it all seemed. Tychoon eventually shows up and joyfully embraces his daughter. Recognizing him, Kurt wastes no time confronting him, insisting that his actions were unacceptable. Tychoon admits he has a daughter and that he'd do anything for her, though not to that extreme. But Kurt jumps to conclusions. Based on what he's analyzed, Kurt wrongly believes Tychoon fell for his own daughter and ended up doing disturbing things. Tychoon instantly denies it, but Kurt is unfazed. He asserts that Famia, aware of her father's intentions, took a potion to appear older. Famia refutes this, but again, Kurt doesn't listen. Since Tychoon could no longer act on his obsession with his daughter, Kurt assumes he captured Hildegard as a substitute. To Kurt, this makes Tychoon a pedophile. Shocked by the harsh allegation, Tychoon tries to clear his name, but Kurt remains indifferent. Both men do agree on one thing: Tychoon genuinely loves his daughter. She's the child his wife sacrificed herself for, and he'd go to any length to keep her alive. Hildegard, realizing Kurt's words might derail everything, quickly paralyzes him with a strike, leaving him silent and immobilized on the ground. She then turns to Famia and asks if she still intends to carry out her plan to eliminate Tychoon. Famia confirms it. What's going on here? I'm just as stunned as you are. Konoha Forest. Half a year had passed since Naruto and Hinata first became friends. And like clockwork, Sarutobi and Haruka would arrange their Sunday playdates without fail. But today wasn't one of those Sundays. Still, Naruto considered it a great day. Why? Because he had gone the entire day without drawing any glares from the villagers, and now he was laying flat on his back, peacefully gazing up at the night sky. His peace, however, was cut short by the sudden crack of a branch nearby. With nothing else grabbing his attention, curiosity got the better of him, and he went to check it out. A short sprint later brought him face to face with a man wearing a Kumo forehead protector. But what really caught Naruto's eye was the unconscious girl tossed over the man's shoulder. She had deep blue hair, pale eyes, and seemed to be around his age. His thoughts began to race as he recognized her face. His attention quickly shifted to the stranger. Hey, what do you think you're doing with Hinata-chan? Naruto yelled. The Kumo ninja, who had just been mumbling something about rotting branches, snapped his head up in surprise at the sudden voice. He gave Naruto a look and said, "What does it look like, kid?" "I'm taking the Hyuga heiress." Naruto didn't know the word heiress but kidnapping. That he understood clearly. Gritting his teeth, Naruto growled, "Put Hinata-chan down or you're going to regret it." The Kumo shinobi burst out laughing, amused that such a young brat dared to threaten him. "You really think a little runt like you can stop me? Please, you can barely stand on your own, he said dismissively. Furious, Naruto dashed toward the man with all the speed his small body could muster. But to the ninja, it was laughable. As soon as Naruto got close, he simply raised a leg and launched the boy backward with a swift kick. Naruto felt like he had just been trampled by a stampede. His chest throbbed, his ribs ached. Groaning, he looked up to see the man still inspecting his captive. His anger flared hotter. If he didn't do something, Hinata could be in serious danger. Naruto climbed back to his feet, shakily but with determination, catching the attention of the kidnapper. Crimson chakra began to seep from his skin as his fury grew. The Kumo shinobi met Naruto's gaze and froze momentarily. The boy's eyes had transformed into crimson irises with slit pupils, and his whisker marks thickened as more of that ominous red chakra spilled out. Despite these changes, the ninja wasn't alarmed. The boy's chakra was barely above a beginner's. Again Naruto rushed in, his pain seeming to vanish in the red haze. The enemy, unimpressed, simply drove a punch into Naruto's gut, knocking the wind out of him instantly. Hyuga compound Hayashi Hyuga was seething. His daughter had vanished from her bedroom, apparently abducted without leaving any signs of a struggle. He ordered one of the branch family members to alert the Hokage and set out with a group of clan members to track her down. Byakugan activated, they scanned the surrounding area as they fanned out. Hayashi himself moved swiftly in the direction he suspected the intruder had gone. Minutes later, he spotted the culprit, paused as if preparing for something. A closer look confirmed it. The abductor was a Kumo shinobi, likely part of the recent delegation sent for treaty talks. But all Hayashi saw was his daughter being carried like luggage. Then he noticed another figure, Naruto Uzumaki, covered in red chakra and charging at the man, only to be struck down again. As two ANBU agents neared, Hayashi made a snap decision. If anyone was going to deal justice to this intruder, it would be him. Without hesitation, he burst from hiding and engaged the Kumo ninja, not caring that the sudden movement caused Hinata to fall roughly to the ground. In a blur of strikes, he incapacitated the man, then landed a killing blow. The foreign ninja collapsed lifelessly. Turning to Naruto, who was now crouched over Hinata's still form, Hayashi briefly considered whether he should eliminate the boy too, just in case. But the arrival of the ANBU interrupted his line of thought. Bird, Cat, he addressed them. The threat has been neutralized. Bird, the senior ANBU, replied, even so, we must all report this to the Hokage. Hayashi nodded. Understood, I know how these protocols go. A faint whimper shifted their attention. With Naruto crashing to the ground again, Naruto struggled to rise, only to see Hinata drop roughly to the dirt. Forgetting his own pain, he dragged himself to her side, examining her injuries through blurred vision and the strange, burning sensation crawling under his skin. He stayed by her, checking her over for several minutes, ignoring the distant sounds of battle behind him. Once he was certain she didn't need a medic, he lay down beside her, finally allowing himself to relax. But that relief was short-lived. The burning sensation inside him intensified, flooding his nerves. He whimpered, the pain becoming unbearable. Within moments, his cries echoed through the clearing, until he finally passed out, the agony too great. Hospital Sarutobai's week had taken a turn for the worse. First, the Hyuga heir was nearly abducted. Then Kumo began demanding answers after the death of their representative. But what troubled him most was the boy now lying unconscious in the hospital, Naruto Uzumaki. He entered a restricted room in the medical ward after a gentle knock, finding Naruto asleep with red, irritated skin stretched across his body. Taking a seat, the Hokage waited for the doctor he trusted most with Naruto's health. 5 minutes later, a tired-looking medical nin walked in. Good to see you, Hokage-sama, she said. Likewise, mommy, he replied. What's the diagnosis? I believe I've figured it out, she answered. Naruto accessed the Kyubai's chakra before his body could handle it. The seal was supposed to help him gradually adjust, but this sudden surge bypassed that. Sarutobai leaned forward. So what happens to him now? Well, she said, flipping through her notes, it's fascinating. At first, the combination of his chakra and the Kyubai's started burning him from the inside. But then, something changed. His body began producing a new kind of chakra, one that seems to oppose the Kyubai's influence. That sounds like it could create more conflict, Sarutobai mused. Normally yes, Mommy replied, But in this case, the new chakra is forming a barrier around the seal, almost like it's shielding him. She continued, "What's more, Naruto's still in a transitional state. His body had adapted to hosting the Kyuubi, but it hasn't become reliant on it. That means we're unlikely to see any long-term damage, though he may never be able to access the fox's chakra again." Sarutobi looked uneasy. Without the Kyuubi's healing, can he really survive in this village? That's the surprising part, Mommy said with a small smile. This new chakra appears to have inherited the healing role. When he first came in, his skin looked like it had been torched. Now it's just inflamed, and it's only been 3 days. Well, that's something, Sarutobi said with relief. Yes, she agreed. At his current pace, I expect him to wake up in about a week. And visitors? The Hawkage asked. In 3 more days, I'd say, Mommy replied. Thank you. 1 week later, Hinata sat at Naruto's bedside, waiting patiently for him to wake up so she could express her gratitude. Her mother had explained everything, how Naruto had tried to rescue her, and though he hadn't succeeded, he stalled the attacker long enough for help to arrive. What truly warmed her heart was how, after everything, the first thing he did was make sure she was okay. He had briefly woken the night before, just long enough for Mommy to confirm his recovery before falling back asleep. Now, however, things were different. As Naruto slowly stirred, his mind foggy, the familiar scent of lavender tickled his senses. Without even opening his eyes, he whispered, "Good morning, Hinata-chan." Hawkage building, Haruka's concern had been growing day by day. It had been a full month since Hinata had been taken, and Hayashi's behavior was becoming more alarming. His tone had grown sharper, and he seemed obsessed with the notion that Hinata should naturally surpass her cousins simply because she came from the main family. Haruka couldn't understand his reasoning. After all, Hinata's cousin was older by a year and had a natural ease in mastering the Hyuga fighting techniques. To make matters worse, Hayashi's teaching methods seemed to hinder more than help, leaving Hinata struggling and miserable within the family estate. Still, not every aspect of Haruka's life was bleak. She was currently expecting a second child, a fact that filled her with joy and anticipation. However, that happiness seemed small in the shadow of her growing concerns for Hinata, which is why she now made her way to the Hawkage's office seeking help. Hawkage's office, the third Hawkage sat behind his desk, finally relieved after finishing paperwork related to last month's incident. Things had returned to their usual pace. A knock at the door caught his attention and he responded, "Come in." "Ah, Haruka, I hear congratulations are in order," he greeted warmly. "Thank you, I'm 2 months along," Haruka replied with a small smile. "That's wonderful news. So what brings you here today?" he asked, leaning forward.